let's go back further. Rent control was established, actually, first place in the US was Berkeley, California in the 1960s.
Hmm.
Everything's under rent control. You can't raise the rent, blah, 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 all properties. Well, Berkeley became, in about 5 years, one of the most blighted areas in the entire country. Businesses closed. Rental stock was a disaster. Repairs weren't being made, air conditioning weren't, heaters weren't working. It was extreme blight, and then it went to crime. And they said, "Well, what happened? What happened?" Well, no one could afford to have a rental or a business in Berkeley because it covered everything, commercial properties, everything. And so Costa-Hawkins came along, a Democrat and a Republican at the time, and they wrote a bill, the Costa-Hawkins Amendment, and that was passed unanimously, bipartisan in the state of California, that said, wait a minute, not everything is under rent control. You cannot have single families be under rent control, single family homes. And there was a bunch of other things, like if a property was built in a new build, a new construction would not be subject to rent control, on and on and on. And about 5 years later, Berkeley bloomed again. So you would think, oh, well, there's the example, isn't it? There's the example we should look at when it comes to rent control. And yet we went ahead and so did many other cities and passed rent control. Many other cities passed rent control in 2020. And then what's the fight been ever since? Let's get rid of Costa-Hawkins. Let's get rid of Costa-Hawkins. Let's go back to the way it was when Berkeley was blighted, is the translation. You can't convince these people. You can't convince Mai Vang or anybody that I've talked to, any legislator I've talked to, that you're trying to go back to when Costa-Hawkins was put in place because blanket rent control was a disaster. Now you want to go back to blanket rent control because you don't know history. They just refuse to get it. They just don't understand it. And so what do? They can't say single family homes, for example, are under rent control. You can't say that. That would violate the Costa-Hawkins Act, which, by the way, to overturn that would take a constitutional amendment. So it's got to pass, 60% or something by the public, and on and on and on. And so they say, well, we can't just get rid of Costa-Hawkins. So what can we do? And this is an example of just their sneaky little tactics. In 2021, our California legislators passed a law. How are we going to make single family homes subject to rent control? How are we going to do that? We can't just undo Costa-Hawkins. Let's do this. Here's a notice. You have to give your tenant a notice that says, this property is under rent control. And if you don't, I'm sorry.
The property is not under rent control?
The property is not under rent control. And if you fail to give them that notice by June, or was it July 1st of 2021, then guess what? You didn't give them the notice, so now the property is subject to rent control.